Hey y'all, it's me, Kevvie. So as you'll know if you already watched my May and June wrap-up video, I recently finished reading the Stephen King short story collection Skeleton Crew with the Bookish Drummers Discord book club. So like I did with Night Shift, here's my ranking of all of the short stories in this collection. 21, Wedding Gig. By far the absolute worst short story in this collection. It was so offensive. First of all, it's another example of King's obsession with caricature, this time focusing on Italians. So that was annoying, but what made it so much worse was the fat phobia in this story. The central premise is that there's this guy marrying a fat woman, and some other guy pays another guy to go to their wedding and insult her for being a fatty. Then the fat woman's brother gets murdered outside the wedding, after which the fat woman gets fatter and fatter and fatter until she dies of a heart attack. Yeah, fuck that shit. 20. Here There Be Tygers. This one made no sense to me. I'm normally able to go along with the story that's outlandish or ridiculous, as long as it makes sense within the logic of the story. But this story didn't seem to follow any logic whatsoever, so I was just left lost. 19. Paranoid, A Chant. Would be better titled, Stephen King Shouldn't Write Poetry. 18. Milkman 1. The first Milkman story had potential, but it wasn't successful for me. I've read a very similar sort of story by Beifel's Disciple over on No Sleep about a creepy clown named Uncle Beans. If you want to read some real gross-out horror, I'd recommend that over Milkman. 17. Mrs. Todd's Shortcut. Fuck, this story did not work for me. I don't drive, I don't know cars, I don't give a crap about which way you turn down some back street. Oh, there was a weird vibe going down that street. Oh fuck, I don't give a damn. Whatever, I don't care. Cain Rose Up. This story was fucking stupid. The subject matter didn't offend me, it was just a weak story. We recently read a short story in the next collection, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which I think handled the subject matter so much better and made it way more horrific. 14. For Owen. Another one of King's attempts at poetry, and it just did not work. I was so confused and just couldn't understand any of it. 13. The Reach. The Reach is the final story in this collection. And like Night Shift, they chose to end Skeleton Crew in a strange place. Rather than being a final punch of horror, it's a lot more sensitive and haunting, but in an emotional sort of way. It was fine. 12. Beachworld. Beachworld was the okayest story in the collection. Very middle of the road for me, didn't make me feel anything. It was just fine. 11. Uncle Otto's Truck. I enjoyed the premise of Uncle Otto's Truck. I was just a little put off by its execution. Another example of my brain trying to make sense of the story's logic and the pieces just not fitting together. How does a car fit through a window? 10. The Monkey. It was alright. I feel like the story's success comes from being based on an already creepy object, and everything else was just superfluous. There wasn't enough motivation in it for me besides this monkey's creepy. Like, of course it is. 9. Word Processor of the Gods. This was an alright story, but what bugged me about it was that it had a very similar concept as one of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes. I could forgive that if it added something new to the story or improved upon it, but it didn't. It was an inferior take on the subject, and the ending just didn't work for me either. 8. Gramma. Gramma was a really creepy story. It wasn't a favorite, but it was pretty good. 7. Survivor Type. This is the first of the excellent stories on this list. At this point, I love all of them. Survivor Type is about a man trapped on a deserted island without any resources and going to extreme lengths to survive. This was a really gory story, and I loved that. 6. The Mist. For some reason, Stephen King included the 150-page novella The Mist in a short story collection, but it is easily one of the best stories in Skeleton Crew. The Mist is Lovecrafty and cosmic horror done right. Rather than a kaiju monster trampling buildings, it's just out there, chilling in the fog, waiting for you to step outside. And while it's out there minding its own business, the neighbors inside the grocery store become just as frightening of monsters. I think that's something that King really excels at, is taking your everyday neighborhood people and just letting them reveal the worst of themselves and become the true monster of the story. The same thing happened with Under the Dome. I thought that was brilliantly done. So yeah, loved that in The Mist. My only complaint was that the film's ending was better. But otherwise, it was excellent. 5. The Jaunt. This was Stephen King exploring science fiction and doing a kick-ass job. It was very similar to a classic sci-fi novel that I read last year, The Universe Between by Alan E. Nourse, which, if you didn't see my review of it last year, is my Aunt Jan's favorite science fiction novel. So if you like sci-fi, or you like my Aunt Jan's reviews, definitely give that one a read. But anyway, The Jaunt is about the discovery of faster-than-light speed travel. Basically, the ship will just phase into another dimension and then almost instantaneously appear at its destination. The story of this technology's discovery is being told by this man to his kids as they're preparing to take the Jaunt and waiting to be put under, which is another part of the story that adds to the sense of dread. Why are the flight attendants drugging their passengers? And why are some of the travelers afraid to go under and to take the Jaunt? 4. The Raft. The Raft, I think, is one of the best known short stories in this collection because it was adapted into one of the Creepshow movies. Oh, it is so good. 4 teens go for a swim but get trapped on a raft by this evil puddle of sludge. Oh, I love it. 3. The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands. I loved this story so much. Love the ambiance, the atmosphere of having the story be told around a poker game at a club. Something about that framing device really works for me. I loved the antagonist and his horrible affliction. Oh, I loved this whole damn story. 2. The Reaper's Image. This story was fucking awesome. This art collector has a cursed mirror in his collection, and some people, after looking at it, are never seen again. Oh, it was so cool. But my absolute favorite story in this collection was The Ballad of the Flexible Bullet. I was apprehensive going into this one because it was pretty long, closer to 60 pages, but wow, I loved every page. The flexible bullet is a metaphor, meant to describe rather than an instant recognizable damage, one that slowly and unpredictably affects its victim, and you never know quite when they're going to break. The story is about 2 men's descent into madness. An author believes he has an elf living in his typewriter, and when his wife tells his editor to play along, he begins to believe in it too. I loved the build of the story as their delusions became more and more severe. Oh, and this is another one where the framing device has the narrator and a group of friends sitting around a table while he tells the story. I guess I just respond really well to that kind of premise. So here is my ranking of all of the stories in the Skeleton Crew collection. I loved The Ballad of the Flexible Bullet through Survivor Type. I liked Gramma, Word Processor of the Gods through The Reach were fine. I didn't like For Owen through Here There Be Tygers, and I hated The Wedding Gig. Now, comparing this to Night Shift, with that first collection, there were 20 stories, and I loved 9 of them, which is 45%. Whereas with this collection, out of 21 stories, I only loved 7 of them, which is only a third. So overall, I'd say that Night Shift was a more successful short story collection for me. However, I still really loved Skeleton Crew overall and really enjoy the process of reading it with this book club. So there you have my ranking of all the 21 short stories and novellas in the Skeleton Crew collection. So there you have So there you have my final ranking of all the short stories and novellas in Stephen King's Skeleton Crew. We're only a few stories into the next collection, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, so it's the perfect time to jump in and join us. Which one of these stories was your favorite? Are you interested in joining the Short Story Book Club? Let me know in the comments below and I'll send you the Discord link. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if it pleases and sparkles, I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!